Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Aaron if you're new here, and if you are a current subscriber returning to watch my videos, I do appreciate it. Also, if you're coming back to continue watching my Skywalker saga film reviews, I do appreciate that as well. Today is May 8th, so it stands to reason that today we are reviewing the 8th film in the Skywalker franchise, which is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. This is also a Steelbook film review, so I will quickly be going over the Steelbook and then we will get into the main review. Also forgive me if it's out of focus, I really can't tell. I've been getting very little sleep, and when I'm very tired I can't see properly, even with my glasses, so I do apologize if this is ever out of focus. Alright, so this is the Steelbook for The Last Jedi. I like the idea of it. I think it's a little too red, in my opinion. There is no embossing on it, which is fine, but other 6 steelbooks have the Star Wars title embossed. This is the back cover, Captain Phasma again. Here is the inside. It comes with a 4K disc, a Blu-ray, and a Blu-ray bonus disc. It does have some cool art on the inside. Problem is, just like the last steelbook I reviewed, is that when you have the discs inside, you cannot see any of the art, and even if you take one of the discs out to view your movie, you're still not going to be able to see anything. Alright, that wraps it up for this steelbook. Okay, so let's get into the film itself. I don't hate this movie. I know it's a very divisive film among fans. Probably more divisive than the next movie I'll be reviewing tomorrow, which is kind of surprising, to be honest. This one's written and directed by Rian Johnson. He kind of took things in a little bit of a different direction than I think was originally intended when The Force Awakens was produced. And the direction he took it in, I didn't have much of an issue with. You gotta remember when you watch these movies that it's Star Wars. I mean, these films are not meant to be 100% perfectly realistic or 100% serious. There's gonna be moments where that just seem kind of silly and out of place. I mean, that's kind of happened in almost every Star Wars film. But the thing is, when those moments happen, are they huge moments that are gonna affect your opinion on the movie, or is it a small enough moment to kind of just let it go? Like for me personally, in Return of the Jedi, I hate the Ewoks. I stated that in my previous reviews. George Lucas overused them so much as part of the plot, and for me it ruins my enjoyment of the film as a whole. There's moments in this movie where you're kind of like, okay, is this a moment that's actually going to ruin this film for me? For me personally, no. There were not moments like that, but there are some moments that stand out that I just don't care for. One of those moments being the very beginning of this film picks up right where The Force Awakens left off. The Force Awakens ends in such a way that you as the audience is so excited for the next movie, because Rey is handing Luke Skywalker's original lightsaber back to him, and she's holding it out for him to take, and he turns around and looks at her, and then there's this kind of long take, and then it ends. So there were like tons of fan theories out online about what's gonna happen and all this stuff, and no one thought this was gonna happen. He walks over and he takes it from her and he goes, and then tosses it over his shoulder off the side of the cliff. Like, no fan theory ever would have written that up. Like, it wasn't expected, like, in the history of ever. I was there at the theater watching this scene. Almost the whole theater, like, chuckled, and then I think everyone kind of realized, like, did they really just do that? So I mean, if that doesn't tell you straight off the bat that this is going to be a different film compared to The Force Awakens, I don't know what will. It does make sense in the story what he did and why he did it. I actually found the whole idea of Luke going into exile kind of to be very interesting, and I would actually honestly love a series or a movie on the darkness growing in Kylo Ren and everything. I found that part actually really interesting. I actually reviewed this movie years ago when it came out. I said that this movie really feels like a film that is meant to bridge the gap between The Force Awakens and then whatever the third film in this new trilogy is. At that time, there was no Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, yet. But even thinking about that review now and that viewpoint, I think it's still valid. I think this movie really does feel like a film that is meant to kind of be like a small, important chapter in, like, how do I explain this? I feel like this is a very small book or special edition something or another to tie two big stories together. I mean, there's parts in this movie that are very pivotal to characters and to the story, especially for the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. There's some great moments with Kylo Ren in this movie. Yes, I was disappointed when it first came out, but as a film, I was watching it to do this review, and I actually didn't hate it. There are some issues with some character storylines that take place in this movie. There are some storylines that happen that are completely unnecessary to the plot, like straight up weird. Instead of, oh, let's make this a Star Wars movie, it's let's make a social statement right now because we have the audience sitting there in the seat watching a Star Wars movie. They can't go anywhere, so let's make this thing happen. The whole sideline storyline with freeing the animals is just ridiculous to me. There are moments in this movie that characters make decisions that, when you really stop and think about it, is really, really stupid, and no one would ever do this sort of thing under this kind of intense situation. When Rose and Finn free all these animals, they like ransack like half the town on their way, like trying to escape. Finn and Rose are about to be caught, and Finn says to Rose, like, this was worth it just to see them destroy that bit of that town and everything and to free them. And I'm thinking, your whole point in this part of the story is you're trying to get a certain item. The whole fate of, like, the galaxy depends on you. And you're thinking, let's rescue these animals, and there's a big chance we'll get caught, and if we get caught, it's worth it. 20 animals is more important than the fate of the galaxy with human beings. And not just human beings, but, you know, other alien life forms as well. Like, are you serious? It's just like moments like that in movies, it just makes me roll my eyes, and it's like, this is so stupid. And I hate when that happens, because if the movie's good and a scene like that takes place, it just takes you out of the film. You have BB-8 like shooting out coins through like some slot in his round body, and it's like hurting this guy who's trying to attack them. Like, really? Are you serious? And I'm totally fine with scenes of a little bit of cartoonish fun being in these films, like I said earlier in this review, but sometimes people go overboard when they try and do it, and there are moments in this movie where they go overboard. One big part of the movie that I really don't get, and it's the whole part with Admiral or Captain or General Holdo or whatever her name is. She has this whole plan in mind, and Poe doesn't know she has this plan, and so he confronts her about it and is like, what you're doing is endangering people, and I can't believe you're doing this, and you're a coward, and all this stuff. Rightfully so. And then he takes over, relieves her of command at this one point, which again, rightfully so, given the information he has. Both of these times, she could have just told him exactly what she was doing. Like, it wasn't something that was like top secret or anything. Later on, Leia tells him what Holdo was doing. All of a sudden, it makes more sense. You can see he's like regretting his decision and how he treated her and judged her and everything. And it's just like, well, Holdo had two opportunities to straight up tell him what she was doing, and she didn't. It's moments like that in a story or a script where you sit back and you think, the only reason she didn't tell him was because it's a way to make the movie longer and add more attention to the plot. This is my last gripe about this movie, and then I'm going to get to some of the things I like. There's this whole part where Finn is going to sacrifice himself to save the remainder of the rebellion that's in this hideout. He's basically going to drive himself into this cannon. It's like a suicide run, but he's accepted his decision that he's going to do this to save his friends and keep the rebellion alive. And then Rose hits him with her little speeder right before he hits this cannon. They're in the wreckage, and he gets out and he's like, why'd you do that? I was so close to saving everybody. And she's like, oh, you dummy, I saved you. I would have been absolutely livid if someone did that to me. And then she says something along the lines of, we won't win this war by fighting what we hate, but by saving what we love. And it's supposed to be like this really like powerful moment, and it's like, wait a second, this makes no sense, because if you're gonna live by that, then you just broke your own rule, because he was trying to save what he loved, which was the 150 people, and you, and his few friends in the rebellion. You just stopped that from happening, and now everyone's gonna die. That's dumb. The other part that's dumb about that whole statement is, how do you save the people that you love? By fighting what you hate. I mean, that is war. That's like, the only reason war exists is because good guys will stand up and fight for what is right and for the rights of people. Why do they do that? Because they love people. That whole statement is just like, the more you think about it, the more stupid it gets. It's just, man. Anyhow, things I liked about this movie. It looks gorgeous. Rian Johnson does a great job with visually directing this movie. There are some settings in this movie that are just really creative and look really great on screen, whether they make sense logically or not. Kylo Ren definitely has the best story arc in this movie. I wouldn't really say that any of the characters grow in this film, but his story arc out of everyone's is definitely the best. There's a lot of new Force powers in this movie. It's a good thing and a bad thing, because the problem with the Force is it's either really, really cool, but then the more you think about it, it's like, why couldn't people do this earlier? Why can they do it? How come all of a sudden this is an actual power? They could have used this 5 minutes ago, or 5 minutes later they could use the same power and they don't, and it's like, wait a second, you just displayed this power, so why aren't you using it again? Like, stuff like that. And that's the problem with magic and like the Force in fantasy films, because it becomes just a convenient plot tool to use. So in a way, it's a good thing, because it's great to see more Force powers in the Star Wars universe instead of like the same 4 or 5 things, but at the same time, it just gives you more questions that don't get answered. There's a bunch of scenes in space, like space battles, which you expect in every Star Wars film, but they look really great in this film. In this sequel trilogy as a whole, episodes 7, 8, and 9, I really think they all look pretty awesome, to be honest. There is no disappointment there. The editing is good. The pace in this movie moves along decently. John Williams' musical score, again, is great as always. I know this seems more of a negative review than a positive, but these are just things that really stuck out in my mind. But personally, for a rating of personal enjoyment, like I said at the beginning of this review, I really don't hate it, and I don't really dislike it that much. So I'd probably give this like a personal enjoyment factor of like a 7. For a film as of itself, it's made pretty well, despite some poor decisions script-wise. Besides those things, it's really well done, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'd probably give this a 7 or an 8 as well for filmmaking. This is not a movie that if you want to sit down and watch a Star Wars film, you're going to be like, let's watch The Last Jedi. I love this movie. It's not like that. But if you're watching all 9 films or you're watching the sequel trilogy, you're not going to sit through it and be like, can't wait till this one's over. That's good. So I'd give it a rewatchability of like a 7. Yeah, so that about wraps it up. Leave your comments below on what you thought about this movie or any points I made during this review. If you'd like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, I would very, very much appreciate it. Also, if you're just coming across this specific Star Wars review and you're interested in my other ones, I have done the past 7 Star Wars films in the Skywalker saga. I have a playlist on my channel, so if you're interested in hearing my other thoughts on the other Star Wars films, go check that out. Alright, stay tuned for tomorrow, May 9th, as I review the final and 9th. No, it would be better to say 9th and final. As I review the 9th and final film in the Skywalker saga, which is Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. Alright, my name is Aaron. Thanks for watching. I hope you see me in the next review, and may the Force be with you. Goodbye.